Okay, our meeting is called to order, and this is our first committee meeting since the death of our fellow trustee, Darrell Freeman. So I would like us to begin our committee by bowing our head in a moment of silence to honor Trustee Freeman. All right, thank you. So we will begin with our roll call. James.
Good morning. Trustee Baker.
Present.
Trustee Boyd. Trustee Cottle.
Here.
Trustee DeLay.
Here.
Trustee Jacobs. Trustee Smith.
Here.
Trustee Carboyak.
Here.
Trustee Wright.
Here.
Trustee Carpenter.
Here.
General Huber. Mr. Massaro.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Great. Thank you, James. All right, our first agenda item is approval of the minutes, an action item. So everyone's had a chance to review the minutes. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
And all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those oppose? All right, approval of the minutes. The motion passes. Next, we have approval of expedited tenure. Provost Burns, we have, I believe, one candidate, and this is an action item. So.
Right. Thank you, Chairman Wright. Last meeting, you approved the long annual list of tenure promotion. This is a department chair recently hired who did not make it through the process in time for inclusion on that list. So we ask for your consideration of her tenure. She's coming to us from Chair of Psychology, Dr. Stone, coming to us from Missouri University of Science and Technology.
All right, and we can have discussion after the motion. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion on the candidate position? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those oppose? All right, the motion carries for expedited tenure for this candidate. Well, that is our action items for the day. This is unusual. So now we'll go into information items. We're going to learn a lot today. So Provost Burns has information item on the tenure process, which came from our last committee
Right.
meeting.
If you'll remember, at our last committee meeting, there was a question or a request to have a little more information about the tenure process and how it works. So that's what I'm here to do today. I do have slides, which I plan to move through quickly, but it will obviously be happy to answer any questions. One thing to keep in mind as we talk about tenure and what the right number or percentage of tenured faculty is the difference between tenured tenure-track faculty and our non-tenurable faculty. They're all serving important roles, but tenured only, some things can only be done by tenured and tenure-track faculty. And I don't need to read you that list, but everything on that list is the purview of tenured faculty. And so our non-tenurable folks are strictly engaged in teaching. 100% of their load is teaching, so we don't expect them to do the research, the service, the shared governance. That can only be done by tenured faculty. So it's important for us to have a solid, vibrant, tenured faculty. And again, as you read down that list, you'll see those are all central functions to the academic mission. So the faculty are very much a partner in that work. Where are we now in terms of our breakdown of tenured versus tenurable? You'll see that of the full-time faculty, about 57% are tenured, about 25.5% are in non-tenurable lines, and the remainder, 17.6%, are on the tenure track. What is the process? And that's really where we were last meeting, where the questions came out. If you want some bedtime reading, look up MTSU Policy 204 on tenure. It's a very important policy, one that we take very seriously. Not exactly a page turner, perhaps, in terms of a beach read, but we want to be as clear and as detailed as we can to our tenure track folks about how that process works. So it is all spelled out in great detail in Policy 204. Policy 205 talks about the promotion process from assistant professor, which is the rank that most people are hired in at when they come to us in a tenure track role. The processes are very similar, but we have separate policies to talk about promotion to associate professor and then promotion to the ultimate rank, which is professor. Tenure application is typically made in a candidate's 6th year. So the probationary period, as we call it, is 5 years. So tenure track faculty have 5 years to build up their record in teaching, research, creative activity, and service. And most of them over those 5 years compile a voluminous record of achievement. These days, it's all submitted and collated online. Used to be, back in the day, there were large binders that contain the information that the candidates wanted us to look at. Now we have an online process to do that, to try to simplify it and make sure pages didn't get out of order as they went through, as files went through the process. Important for you all, I think, to recall that this is an exhaustive process. Candidates submit their materials in September. Then at the departmental level, the chair and department review or peer committee make a study and a recommendation. Then it goes to the college level where the dean and the college committee look at the record and make a recommendation. Then it comes to my office where Vice Provost Torsney will take a look, and then I'll take a look, and then finally it goes to the president. So there is no shortage of review of these applications. It's very time consuming, but on the other hand, we know how important it is to make sure that when we give someone tenure or they earn tenure, it's someone we're happy about working with for the next 20, 30 years, because that's what we're talking about depending on the age of the person. It's a big commitment on the part of the university, so we want to get it right. Then, as you know, after the president makes his recommendation, that comes to the board for your approval. And I think that's the point at which you all wanted a little more information about how the process works. As Mr. Floyd told us last time, state law does require the board to approve tenure, but I do want to assure you that by the time it gets here, these applications have been well vetted, and not everyone will make it to this point. And again, similar process for promotion. In fact, as you recall, last time there was one list for tenure and another list for promotion, and both of those have to be approved by you. Any questions? I can wait till the end, or you can ask questions about the process. Now, I've got a couple more informational slides, but
So
yes, ma'am.
the reason I asked the question is because really we didn't have visibility into the whole process.
Right.
But in order for the board to be doing its job, it needs to have confidence in the process. And so another question that I have is there from time to time an audit of the process, sort of to take a look and back and go, yeah, they're following the rules. Yep, everything's being, the boxes are all being checked properly. So I don't know, is there sort of like a, from time to time, spot audit to say, yeah, process, here it is, it's valid, it's being followed?
I guess it depends on what the meaning of audit is. I don't know if this is an audit in the strict sense, but for every file, every year, someone or group of people in my office will look at the record of how that file moved through the process to make sure that every step was taken, and that and to make sure that the recommendations were reported accurately in the online system. We also periodically will review that policy. In fact, a couple of years ago, we went through a major rewrite of 204 just to make sure that we were staying current with national practice and that there was nothing to clean up. And we did clean up some things. So in that sense, it's every file is audited every time. Now, I think Dr. McPhee wants to add something to my.
Really good question, and it's an important question because the courts have made it very clear that if there's an issue, and there are times when a faculty member might challenge a decision, that the decision is up to the academic personnel, to the faculty. But a university can get in a lot of legal problems if they don't follow the process and have a surety that all the steps were taken in a fair and equitable way. And so we, and particularly my office when it gets to me, I take a good bit of time to make sure, to your point, that all the boxes are checked correctly so that if there is a question about impropriety or whatever, that we'll be able to deal, yes. So that is something that I take in addition to the steps that the provost and his staff take to make sure that the university is not put in a position where there's an issue with the process.
That's very helpful. Thank you for
And
sharing that.
Chris, not only does the administrative and the academic look at it, but Policy 204 is a responsibility of the legal department. There's not a review, so they're also reviewing that whole process from a legal standpoint too. That's something I don't think came out because, that's an additional thing. So James is responsible.
Yes, any problems in the process, James is responsible, so I concur with that.
That's what I was
Not the
getting at.
decision maker.
James.
Yes, sir.
And sorry, I just want to add a postscript to that. I've actually, both here and when I was responsible for tenure and promotion at the Board of Regents for all the institutions, I've actually reversed some decisions coming to me because all the boxes were not checked. But the courts have been very, very clear that they defer the actual decision to the university and the faculty, except for if there's an issue with the process. So we're very careful about that.
That's very helpful because, I mean, really, there wasn't, and this may be my fault for not digging more deeply into the policy and understanding it, as to, the board doesn't really have visibility into that whole process. And so it was just my question to make sure that we as a board are asking the right questions if there is a need to.
Absolutely.
Provost Burns, you showed a slide of full-time faculty, 56% are tenured, 35% approximately are non-tenurable, and 17% are on the tenure track. How has that evolved over time? As our curriculum has changed, et cetera?
It's been pretty darn stable. We have been between 55 and 60% for the last decade or so. We ran those numbers in response to a question within the last, since the last committee meeting. So we've been quite stable.
Thank you.
And I know there was a question at the last committee meeting about if you know how that compares to peers.
I've got a slide on
You've got a
that.
slide
Yep.
on that, great.
So that's our process, and like the president said, this is an incredibly important thing in the life and career of the tenure track faculty member, so we take it quite seriously and do everything we can to make sure that the process is as clean and as fair as possible. Now, in previous meetings, we've talked about how many people who get hired actually wind up getting tenure. That is, do we realize that some people may not fit? Or do they realize they may not fit? And the answer to that is yes. So for fall 2016, the group of tenured or tenure track faculty member who were hired then, this is the latest group that would have come through the complete process, the ones that you approved last month. This is the outcome for those folks. So 52% of them were tenured on time, 15% resigned before they got to the tenure process. 15% had expedited tenure, that is chairs and others who came in, as you just approved, Dr. Stone, came in with tenure and therefore did not go through the full process. 9% were non-renewed and 9% stopped the clock, meaning for whatever reason, often a personal crisis of some sort, we give them an additional year so they won't show up in these numbers. So that's what happened to the fall 16 class. And the next slide is the same information, but for a 5-year average. So for the folks hired in 2012 through 2016, what happened? And you'll see that it's pretty similar in terms of the breakdown. 53% were tenured, and then you see all the various other categories there. So it's the reality is, in recent history, slightly over half of those hired on the tenure track actually wind up getting tenure. And there are, obviously individual stories about why particular people wind up leaving. My last slide is this question of peer comparisons. And you'll see, looking at comparing us to the other LGIs, we are the, of course, true blue line, which is fourth from the top there. So you'll see that 3 of our LGI peers have a higher rate of tenured faculty as a percent of total full-time faculty. And then the yellow line and the darker blue line have a lower rate. So, I mean, to me, if you're looking to be more or less in the middle for, so to speak, on these charts, that's where we are. So I think we're very much in line with what our peers are doing. And I feel pretty good about the percentage of tenured faculty, and
Okay.
that's it. Be happy to answer any questions, but I don't want to give your questions too little attention, but don't want to drone on endlessly either. Yes, sir.
Ms. Burns, you might just tell them about the appeals process, that if there is a
Right.
dispute, because there is a role for the board in an appeal
There is.
process.
I think we've had one, maybe at least one. We've also, so there's an appeals process. After I make my recommendation is the first formal appeal. At that point, a candidate who doesn't like what I said can appeal to the president, and he will say what he thinks. We've also built in, thanks to Cheryl's work and along with some faculty members, a rebuttal step after each review. So that if, instead of having to wait till after I make a recommendation, if a faculty member thinks something was done incorrectly or they want to argue with the recommendation, there's a place now or an opportunity then to do that along as the process goes. I think that was a really good improvement because, it's always possible, despite the care that we take, that we get something wrong. And so it gives the candidates a chance to do it. Then if the candidate is not happy with the president's decision, that's when it would come to you. I'm happy that that doesn't happen very often, but it has happened a time or two and will continue to happen. I mean, people don't like being told no.
Mm-hmm. And the 6th year, how long then is the process going through the administration all the way?
Yeah, the files are submitted in September by the candidates, and then you finally approve in June.
Okay.
So it's a deliberate process, to put it mildly, and for candidates, it's a bit of an ordeal because you're always waiting from September to June. You don't know what the ultimate outcome is going to be. Now, the further it goes and the more yeses a candidate gets, the better they feel, but you never know until it's over.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir.
Completely off subject. Your position as provost, do you consider all department heads the cabinet? How does that work?
Yeah, the deans and the vice provost are my, I don't know that I call it a cabinet. Maybe I do. Dean's cabinet. It's really the provost cabinet. Yeah. So I have a group of people I meet with regularly, and all the deans, of course, are intimately involved in the tenure process for their colleges. And then Cheryl Torsney, as vice provost for faculty affairs, helps me a lot on the tenure and promotion process.
Okay. Do you have scheduled meetings that
I meet with each dean.
unfold your policy?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the last part of that.
That unfolds your policy or the university policy?
Every year we put out the calendar of what the tenure and promotion process is going to look like and what the deadlines are. And we get that out the spring before it starts. So that calendar has been out for a couple of months. The online system through which the candidates are uploading their documents has been open for, I don't know, a couple of months now. And so we try to make it as clear and as painless for them as possible. But it is a nerve-wracking thing for the candidates. That's just sort of part of it.
And Provost Burns, the subject of tenure has come up a lot since the beginning of this Board of Trustees. So the trends that you showed us, would you say they are consistent? Do you know if they're consistent, like how we compare to peers, has that been pretty consistent for
In terms
many
of the,
years?
in terms of the percentage of faculty, yes, we've been remarkably consistent. Now, we don't have a window into the peers. You know, I showed you the slides about what percentage make it through. There's no way to get that information really, short of asking, and I'm not sure
Yeah.
how forthcoming folks would be, but I would guess that we are pretty much the same.
Okay.
Really, this policy came from TBR initially, and Dr. McPhee was one of the ones who helped craft that. We've tweaked it since, as we become, with your governance, we've become independent. We can, make our own tenure policy, but it's still largely the same. The process is one that has been vetted. There's a national organization called the AAUP, American Association of University Professors, which pays close attention to these issues and is not shy about making recommendations about what it should look like. And if a university gets too far out of line, they will speak up. And I'm happy to say they've never had a complaint against us.
Chairman Wright, to your question, in a previous life, when I was Executive Vice Chancellor of the Board of Regents, my office was responsible for the tenure process that went to the board for all of the universities and the community colleges. And so there is a consistency in terms of the percentage, very much close across the board, whether it's a university or community college. There's we are pretty close to what I've seen during the years I had that responsibility.
Great. Any other discussion? I think this is valuable information because it has been a continuous topic of discussion and questions. So, all right, we will move to our next information item, post-approval monitoring report. Provost.
First of all, thank you for the opportunity to talk about the tenure process. Anytime you have a question or comment, glad to entertain that. Post-approval monitoring, this is an information item. Every year, we go through an iterative process with THEC about newly approved programs. So the first thing to remember is this is not a list of shame. It's not a naughty list. Any program approved within the last 5 years is automatically part of the post-approval monitoring. And I know that you've looked at the charts that THEC constructed based on the information we gave them, and there's numbers and yes, no, and all sorts of information there. One thing to keep in mind is when you see the column that says enrollment benchmarks attained, graduation benchmarks attained, those decisions are based on numbers that we provided at the time of application. So whenever we have a new program proposal, and you know from reviewing the ones that we brought to you, part of that process is for us to give the best estimate of what we think the number of majors will be over the 5 years and what the number of graduates will be. So it's our best estimate. I would not want you to overestimate the scientific nature of that when we do it carefully, but we don't know for sure. I mean, it's a new program. By definition, we don't have any historical information. So when it says, no, you've not met the benchmark, what that means is you have not met 80% of the number that you told us you were going to meet. So it's a helpful thing to us, and we're tracking this all the time anyway, but the process reminds us, hey, you might want to take a close look at this program because it's not hitting the marks that you set out for it. And that's really what this process is all about. So you will have seen in the information that for every program that is not meeting the benchmarks, we have a brief paragraph that THEC culled from a much longer set of information that we gave them about what we're doing. Vice Provost Amy Aldrich Sanford, who's here in the back, and works closely with the relevant deans, department chairs, program directors, and faculty on these programs. The faculty are invested in these programs. They put a lot of work into getting them off the ground, and we don't launch anything thinking it's not going to succeed or not caring whether it's going to succeed. So we take all this quite seriously. So that's some context about how to interpret that no. Another thing to keep in mind is just because it says no, you're not meeting the enrollment or benchmark or the graduation benchmark does not mean that the program is losing money. So that doesn't come through clearly, I don't think, in this report. Now, frankly, determining the revenue is not easy, frankly, in terms of majors, because they're taking general ed classes throughout the university, and particularly in an interdisciplinary major where a student is taking courses from a variety of departments, it can be tough. But important to keep in mind, this does not mean that they're money losers at all. And I guess that's enough context. I mean, I do assure you that if a program does not approve, we take action. There are a variety of steps that we can take. And the first step is always, and that's what the little discussions you see in your booklet, is always to see what can we do to make this program more viable, more successful. And oftentimes it's about leadership of the program, or they need to tweak the curriculum, or there's some resource need that's not being met, and we try to address that and give it a few more years. You've read in the report that THEC has picked out a couple of ours and said, hey, even though you are ending the 5-year review period, we would like to continue to monitor this for 3 more years. So THEC doesn't, once they approve the program and you approve the program, THEC is not, this is not an approval or a disapproval. This is just them telling us, hey, we're watching, we encourage you to watch and take steps as necessary to improve things. So we do. In those cases where this doesn't work, we'll either end the program, we can put it underneath an existing major as a concentration, in which case a different set of metrics apply.
I
So
also
with-
want to add that we have eliminated a number of programs over the years that have consistently not have met the metrics. So it's not something that we just put aside and allow them to continue to be not productive. We've eliminated, we usually bring them to the board. A few of those we've brought to the board for elimination as well.
Most recently, we had the business education program, which had a fair number of faculty associated with it at one point. Well, what happened is society changed. There was not the demand for those graduates, and so some of the faculty retired, and we reassigned, repurposed the rest of them. So we're constantly watching this. Faculty members are our most important resource, and we want to make sure they're deployed in the most effective way. So it's not in our interest to let a academic program languish out there with a lot of faculty associated with it. The other thing to keep in mind is that eliminating a program does not necessarily mean that you're going to let go a lot of faculty members, because most faculty are teaching a variety of the courses that exist in a variety of programs. So it's not quite as simple as saying, well, you have X faculty teaching in a particular program. If we cut that program, you can get rid of X faculty. It does not work that way, because most people have teaching loads that include classes in a variety of programs, and often in general education as well.
So when the 3-year monitoring happens, is that like when THEC does that? Do they come back after 3 years, or is it
It's every year.
And then do they use the same metrics that were
Yes.
predicted for year 5 in each of those 3
Yes.
years? Those are the benchmarks?
Yes. Now, again, those estimates were made by us in some cases 6 or 7 years ago. So a lot has
world
changed in that time. The world has changed. So it's fair enough, because we're the ones who gave them the numbers. But on the other hand, well, maybe expectations have changed since then because demand has changed. But that's just part of the process. So yeah, for the next 3 years, we'll see those programs that were specified in the report on this report. And if things don't start to improve, then we'll take action on our own. We don't wait around for THEC to tell us, hey, you need to do something. We'll take care of it.
Any other
I would think it would be reasonable to not wait 3 years to get an action report of some kind. Because it is your job to estimate right, just like if you were estimating the cost of a building.
Right.
It looks like 3 of them didn't do quite as well, 3 of them did better. I mean, that's kind of how it goes, but whoever's in charge of each one of these programs, I would suggest that you ask them for lack of a better term, action report. I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that. and not wait to the end 3 years to get suggestions on how to improve.
Believe me, we will meet annually and do meet annually with those that are deemed to be, on the margin. And keep in mind that you're only seeing a snippet of what they've already produced. We're happy to produce or give to you the bigger report that Amy and the program folks work out each year to show what you're doing. But you're right, we're not going to sit around and wait for 3 years and then decide what to do. We'll work on it each year. And Amy will make sure to get a written report to the board on those that are under scrutiny.
And on a yearly basis, next year this time, you'll come back and say, this group took these actions and they resulted in this or didn't, I hope. I'd like to see
Right.
you put that on the agenda on a yearly basis so that we can, I'm sure this was there, this isn't the first time we've seen this.
No, it's not. We made a point of putting it on each time. It just is a little more dramatic this time because we had a couple of no's, and we don't normally have that. We pride ourselves on not having a lot of no's, but this year we had some. So it's got our attention even more fully than it had before. And so next year we will come with a more full explanation of what's happened over the past year and where we think
You
things
may
stand.
need to adjust your estimate as well, because if you estimate 50 and you have 10, I know things change, but if you keep the estimate at 50, it won't ever make it.
Right.
So,
I just don't think we can change that after the fact, right, Amy? I mean, once we submit it, that's the estimate. And that's what I was getting at when I said some of these numbers, the ones in the 50 are now, we made those projections 6, 7 years ago. And life has changed. We've had a pandemic and everything else. So it'd be great if we could go back. Of course, if we could do that, then we're going to pick a number that
yeah,
gets a yes in that column. I mean, I don't want to suggest that there could be some gamesmanship in these numbers, but
Rewrite the rules.
we do the best we can to be as honest as we can and get the programs approved. But yes, sir, we'll bring forth that additional information next year.
It's interesting to see that of all the programs that were reported in 2020, all but 2 went down, and the 2 that exceeded actual enrollment, hospitality and tourism, and data science.
Demand areas.
Right.
and hospitality is going to, in my opinion, exponentially increase here if the stuff we're working on campus goes through.
Well, I can tell you the folks in that program are extremely excited about that possibility, and they're involved in the discussions, and yes, it's going to help us. Right, there are some that are no-brainers on the front end, and they turn out to be no-brainers all the way around and all the way through the process, and those 2 that you mentioned are certainly that. Physician assistant studies is too new to have complete information, but it's it's going to fill up every time, and so that's going to be a major success as well.
Okay, thank you, Provost. And now we will go to enrollment update. Dr. Sales?
Good morning.
Morning.
I'm juggling more than my usual number of papers because this is a critical time for enrollment, and the numbers are pouring in even as I'm sitting over there at my computer right now. We did the purge last night, and so that changed every number on my sheet as of about 7:30 p.m. At midnight, students were able to start re-enrolling and picking back up classes that got dumped. So starting at about 1 a.m., I was getting new numbers as people started to come back in. So these are literally hot off the press, what I have for you. And I have a handout that I'll pass around that'll summarize some of it, and then some of it I'll also just sort of talk through with you. I'll begin by saying this is probably not the best word to use, but this is the weirdest year for enrollment numbers that I have ever seen. And I think that's true all across the country. I know it's true here in the state of Tennessee. What we are watching happening with application numbers and admission numbers and now enrollment numbers is just sort of unprecedented and very hard for us to completely interpret. I think that understanding the numbers is going to be something that we do a better job of after the fact than right now when we're in the midst of it. So I'll walk through with you some of what we're seeing right now. As of last week, our freshman application numbers and admit numbers continue to be just absolutely off the chart. No, don't get too excited yet. So, we have admitted a freshman class that's 25% larger than last fall's freshman class. That's just ridiculous. What's happening, though, is that as I talk to colleagues across the state and as we watch what's happening across the country, that is largely, we believe, and we'll know better in retrospect, a function of young people sort of hedging their bets, and they are applying at multiple institutions, and they are carrying that application process all the way through, including attending orientations at various schools and enrolling in classes at various schools and watching the financial aid packages that they get at various schools. So although we are up 25% in the admitted freshmen this fall, right now, we are looking, as of this morning, just a few minutes ago, freshman enrollment at 2,706 students, which is an increase of just 3% over last fall. So 25% increase in our admits, 3% increase in the actual students that have enrolled from the freshman class. So we're obviously watching that very carefully. That number is in sync with what I watched come through our customs orientation program. Usually I can look at what the bottom line number of freshmen that I bring through orientation is, and it translates pretty closely to what the freshman class is going to be like. And so this is all sort of syncing up for me right now, and I'm feeling pretty good about that. Transfers. As we all have been watching, transfer numbers are going to be a problem for us because the enrollment at the community colleges really plummeted over the course of the past couple of years with COVID and changes in the economy. And so, as expected, we have about a 10% decrease in the number of transfer students that applied to MTSU this fall. So 10% decrease in our applications of transfer students. But a greater percentage of them actually completed the full application process and were admissible. So our admits in transfer students are actually down just about 3.5%. So 10% fewer applications, 3.5% fewer admits. And of those admitted after the purge last night, transfer enrollment stands at 1,460 students, which is a decrease of about 7.9%. So the decrease in enrollment is a little less than the decrease in our actual applications. So we're watching that very carefully as well. So that makes for our undergraduate enrollment right now, after the purge, standing at 16,291 students, which is a decrease over last fall's undergraduate enrollment at this time. It's a decrease of 3.27%. Now, we finished census last fall with a decrease in our undergraduate class of 6.75%. So we've cut that decrease in half. We're feeling pretty good about that. That's a lot of students to make up in 1 year, and we're on track, I think, to begin to turn that around. Graduate enrollments are suffering right now. I think that's largely a result of the change in the economy. What we see is that there's an inverse relationship between graduate enrollments and the economic situation in the country. So when things really were tanking a couple years ago, people flocked back to graduate education. And now with unemployment rates what they are, they're flocking back into the job market. And so we're suffering in our graduate enrollments, and you can see that they're down right now about 10.5%. That makes our overall total enrollment as of last night's purge standing at 18,715 students, which is an overall decrease of 4.27%. And last fall, we were down 5.54%. So we're closing that gap and reducing the amount that we have lost. You'll be happy to know that in terms of the purge last night, a year ago, we purged 1,318 students. Last night, we purged 1,150. In terms of percentage of the students we had enrolled, last year it was 6.34% of the students enrolled that got purged. Last night it was 5.81%. So again, every year we're bringing down the number of students who got purged. Transfer students typically take a hard hit in that purge, and that was true again this year. That's because so many transfer students are taking summer classes at their previous institutions, and we cannot, by federal mandate, push their financial aid until we get their grades in from their summer classes. And if they're being sent to us from another institution, we're not in control of when those grades hit us. So some transfer students suffer in the purge simply because we can't finish and finalize their financial aid and push it out onto their accounts because we don't yet have transcripts from their summer schools. But that was a reduction in the number of students purged. Now, what I was just working on the computer with our business office folks this morning is as of 8:36 a.m. this morning, 170 students of those that were purged have already re-registered for classes. And in addition to those 170 who were registered, purged, and now re-registered, in addition to those 170, we have 6 new graduate students that had not previously been in the mix that picked up classes last night, 4 new undergraduate students who had not previously been in the mix that have added, and 19 undergraduates that will be returners but had not yet done an initial enrollment for fall. So that's an additional 23, 29 students that were not counted before that are now going to be in our counts as we run the numbers. I also want you to know that one of the ways that we deal with students that you're well aware of is to work with students who have a small outstanding balance that's going to cause them to be purged. And we use funding that has come in through your good work and donations from other folks as well. Last night, we dispersed just under $15,000 to students who are on the cusp of being purged. We were able to help 33 students, 19 seniors, and 14 freshmen who all had small needs, and we were able to disperse about $15,000, and that carried them through the purge and kept them in our numbers. So we feel really good about that, and I know they're grateful for your generosity in helping to support all of that. So that's what we're looking at right now. We watch these numbers day by day, hour by hour, and we'll keep you posted as we go along. The official numbers for the university come on the 14th day, which is our census.
It was that a soft ask? Is now the time for us to redo our last student funding?
Anytime is the time to redo
Well,
your
I know,
last
it's
student
been a
funding.
year, is this, I'm out of it. Is
I'll
this
speak
normal?
to, I'll let Joe speak to when the time to do that is.
Most of your contributions to that fund come in the fall semester. But it's not the month of September, it pretty much gets spread from September to December.
Well, with permission or without it, I'll send everybody a note.
Okay.
Great.
All right. We can't say no to you. Or wouldn't want
It's
to.
to her.
It's to our students. 33 students
Yes,
are continuing to be
absolutely.
enrolled that otherwise would have lost classes.
Yeah.
You know, Pat sent us, thank you, that the national average, that doesn't make ours any, is twice, more than twice, is 11%. So even though we don't like this, it's, we're on the right corner and we're gonna be all right. Now, my math, so are we 10% off what we were 2 years ago? 5 and 4?
I haven't pulled my two-year ago
Just
numbers
added
yet,
the 2
but
decreases. I'm not sure that's proper math.
I'd have to go back and look, and I'll run the numbers. Be glad to get that for you.
Well, we had a 4% this year. And last year we had 6. So we're off 10% from 2 years ago.
Another factor is we brag about being, and we think that's a good brag, the #1 transfer institution in the state of Tennessee, and we've been that for 10, 15 years. 52% of our student enrollment are transfer. And so as Deb noted earlier, we've seen in this state a double-digit decrease in the community college enrollment. The largest was at Southwest Community College. They had a 25% decrease in their enrollment. Our major feeder, Motlow, that has been growing crazy in the last 5 years. Last year, I think they had a double decrease in their enrollment. So our dependents, when the enrollment in community colleges were skyrocketing, we benefited from that. Now they are struggling, and it's amazing that they are, because there's still free community college tuition for citizens of the state. With our large dependence on community college, what happens there directly impacts us. The good news is the interest of students in our university, as Deb mentioned, with application is historically high. The second good news is new students. You notice our freshmen, first-time freshman enrollment is in the green. It's up. And so we have to weather this storm with the community college decrease in enrollment because of our dependence on that. And then we are looking at, and we've put together and have had some sessions with enrollment management of our corporate partnerships to try to mitigate what's happening in the community college through our corporate partnership enrollment. But as long as the community colleges continue to decline, that is going to be a real challenge for us because that's been our bread and butter for a number of years.
The brightening economy really hits the community colleges because those are the students that are sort of economically on the cusp. And when they look at, you know, such low unemployment, they're having to, even with free community college, they're having to weigh out, do I pay what it's going to take in terms of opportunity costs, not being able to work those hours to go to school, even if it's free, or do I work a job that now are starting out at $15 and $20 an hour? And for many students, that's just hard to resist. So that is going to be an issue. Again, we're going to make sense out of these numbers, I think, a little bit in retrospect as we watch what else happens. Our understanding is that UT Knoxville has sort of taken off all the brakes and is working to grow just as fast as they can. And we know from the National Student Clearinghouse that students who are admitted to MTSU and don't come here, their #1 destination is UT Knoxville. So if Knoxville is growing, that's going to have some impact on us as well. That 25% increase in our students admitted, my guess is that a whole bunch of them were also admitted at UTK. And so we'll watch and see what happens with their numbers. They're crying right now that they don't have enough housing for all of their incoming freshmen. So we expect they're going to be growing quite a bit. We're also hearing some of that happening up the road at Tennessee State, and they have some funding that is specific to the historically black institutions in the country, and they're using that to really grow their freshman class as well. So it'll be interesting to see how all of that plays out as we begin to see the numbers come in from the other schools.
I'd like to see at our board meeting the latest numbers on the community colleges. I mean, by then, we'll know it's a month off, right? So by then, you'll have a guess at, or better than a guess on what Motlow is doing in particular and the others, because like you said, that's a needle mover.
It's a bellwether for us, yeah. Yeah, we'll begin to see, we aren't given those numbers officially, but we have some moles embedded internally that I think will be able to get us some numbers by the next board meeting.
Well, one other just suggestion, if somebody applies and isn't quite ready, do we try to help them go to Motlow or Columbia State?
Yeah, we have a program called the MTSU Promise, and that is a partnership that we have with, I think, 8 of our feeder community colleges right now, and it's a formal agreement where students who don't quite meet our admission standards get a special rejection letter. Instead of just saying you're not ready, it says we think you're going to be a great MTSU student, and we want you to start with your local community college, which in your case is, and we insert whatever it is, let's say Motlow. And if you start at Motlow, complete 60 hours, and have a 2.0 GPA, then we will guarantee you a scholarship to finish your work here with us at MTSU. And so that's called the MTSU Promise. We have that in place with, I think, 8 now community colleges. In return, They give us access to all of their admitted students at the community colleges, so we can put them into our communications email flow and begin to communicate with them from the day they walk onto that community college campus to talk to them about transferring here. And we provide to each of those community colleges a monthly update of the students and the contact information for those students whom we've given those letters to, so that then the community colleges can reach out to them and say, we understand that you have an interest in middle in 2 years. We're your starting point. Let us get you going.
It might not be worth the postage, but I think a follow-up email saying, where are you now? I mean, it didn't quite work out here.
Yep.
We're trying to keep up with you.
Yep. Those transfer recruiters do a lot of that work.
Good.
Yeah.
You also need, sorry, go ahead,
Housing.
Trustee Baker.
Have read about the UT, TSU. Are you saying freshman incoming, we have plenty and viable in the freshman housing market?
We don't require freshmen to live on campus.
correct.
And so that makes part of the difference. Those schools that have a freshman live-on requirement have a little different responsibility. Now, we do have some students that are indicating that the Murfreesboro market is getting tighter, and so we've been working with students and their families. We cut off our waiting list for on-campus housing about the second week of July. We knew that we'd be full. We just took the last name off the waiting list this week. So we've provided housing for everybody that we agreed to provide housing for, and now they're going into the off-campus market. We will probably be able to open up to a few last-minute hardship cases because we continue to get a few cancellations each day as students decide, you know what, I'm going to stay and live with my mom and dad and save that money this year. So we'll continue to be working on that.
Trustee Baker, we would have had the same problem at UT or Tennessee Tech if we had the requirement that all incoming freshman students have to live.
Right.
Even though we don't have that requirement, we still had a waiting list by early fall of requesting. So that's the difference. That's what you're hearing, and that's the difference.
Typically, about 50% of incoming freshmen live on campus. Typically, of the remaining, about 2/3 of them live at home with their families, and then the remaining live off campus in apartments for freshmen. What we're finding is that year over year, we're getting more currently enrolled students wanting to come back and live on campus. It's becoming more affordable than some of the off-campus places, and it's just easier in terms of lifestyle to be on campus than to have to drive in every day.
We also having discussion and developing some plans to build some additional housing on
Yes,
campus.
the Womack Lane footprint, it's time for that to be replaced, and so we are working with an architectural firm right now to develop a program for that. The question will be what's affordable. We think we can afford probably around $40 million. It's an auxiliary, so it has to be paid for by the fees of the students who live on campus. We think we can afford about $40 million to redevelop that space, and the question for the architects is, can we get as many beds out of that $40 million as we think we're going to need to pay for it? So we're working on that right now.
I hope we work strong, because it sure encourages online student participation activities versus suitcase
Sure.
college
Yep.
label.
Yeah. We are also out in the high schools now recruiting for next fall's class.
I was just going to say that no rest for the weary. Actually, we have our first True Blue tour for next fall this week.
Tomorrow.
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 That's this week.
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow. And we'll be hitting the road for
After
the
that.
next
Yep.
couple of months. So it never stops. And I think it really does pay off. And that's one reason why you're seeing increase in first-time freshmen. And that is really the key for us to see not only the interest in terms of application going up, but also that your first-time freshman enrollment is going up. And we're seeing that, and I think it's a result of the work that our recruiters do out there in the community around the state, and also some of the surrounding state, because we will be going to Georgia, Kentucky,
Alabama.
and Alabama as part of our True Blue tour in the next couple of months.
All right, thanks.
Thank you. Well, that is a real success that we're seeing that in light of us looking at these articles of how students are choosing not to go to college out of high school. So we can really celebrate that success. We've heard the challenges, but that's a real success.
Yes.
So congratulations on that. All right, our last agenda item is Chris Massaro for an athletics update.
Thank you, Chairman Wright. And I was driving through campus yesterday and drive by the School of Music, and they're getting ready for band camp. And nothing beats the sound of the band practicing in the fall, and just reverberates through the campus that, you know, the new year is upon us and those kind of things. So this affords me one opportunity to look back to next year, to last year, and then also to look forward to this year. And I think the most important statistic is last year we graduated 48 student athletes. And then we also, on top of that, graduated 5 student athletes with graduate degrees. So we had a very successful year in the classroom. There's an NCAA measurement that you're familiar with called the graduation success rate. And the last 2 years we've been at 93%. We're working with our preliminary numbers right now, and those are school records. And it'll be announced later in the fall after everything gets verified. But I'll be very surprised if we don't shatter the 93%. So very successful year in the classroom. And again, just to refresh everybody, that's a collaborative effort. Our coaches and student athletes obviously get a lot of credit. The academic advising unit reports under Dr. Sells and her operation, and the tutors and all those kind of things. So it's a very university collaborative effort that's been highly, highly successful. Last year we won 4 conference championships. Men's and women's cross country won their titles. Men's basketball had the greatest turnaround in college basketball and won the CUSA Eastern Division. And then men's tennis won Conference USA and entered the NCAA tournament as a #1 seed. On top of that, the football team won the Bahamas Bowl. And given all that, there's a measurement called the Learfield Cup, which is what they do is measure everybody's postseason success in NCAA and bowl games. And then they rank them according to the points for each sport. We were the highest ranked finisher in Conference USA out of that measurement. So we did better postseason than anyone else did. And I fully expect our graduation success rate to be better than anyone else in Conference USA when we announce that. So I'm very proud that we're able to mold the success of the championships and the success of our student athletes in the classroom together. So this year, and I'll be brief, just a couple of bullet items to kind of look forward as, you know, with that band plan, that means next year is here. That on September 15th is the new date that we have for our tennis groundbreaking for our new outdoor tennis complex. And that'll be the first real project that will be launched on our Build Blue campaign. What you'll see this year is this conversion from blueprints to bulldozers. And that's a really important step for us to take. And for our fans and patrons and donors to be able to see that kind of tangible process. They've seen plans and schemes for several years now. And so the most common question I get is, when is it going to start? Well, that's the first start is with men's and women's tennis outdoor facility, and that's September 15th. Our Student Athlete Performance Center, which is the big initiative, a $64 million building that will help all of our student athletes. We're scheduled, and right now it's on schedule, to break ground at the end of football season. So during the winter, we'll see demolition of the weight room and the beginnings of the construction of this. So I'm hoping next year when I address you all at the August committee meetings that I have to brush a little sawdust off of myself. There's other 2 really neat things that's going to happen this year, and that we're really proud to be a part of. Is it's the 50th year of Title IX. And that legislation was passed in 1972, and we've got a tremendous history with our women's athletics and what they've done. So you'll see a lot of the celebrations for Title IX throughout the course of the year on this. And then coinciding with that is the 50th anniversary of the opening of Murphy Center. That happened on December 11th, 1972, and hard to believe that building's 50 years old. And if you've driven by it, it's got a beautiful new facelift. If you've not seen it, go look at the windows. It's amazing what a difference that those have made. But we've got all kinds of celebrations scheduled to help celebrate the Murphy Center. My view, it's the most celebrated building that we have in the mid-state, you know, and there's a lot of memories that are tied to that building, whether it's through commencement, whether it's through concerts, whether it's through athletic events. I mean, it's hard to find somebody in the mid-state where that building has not been touched by someone. So we're excited about that. So those are just a few of the kind of the high points that we can look forward to this year. I think our coaches are excited to launch the school year, and we're ready to go. And I'll take on any questions.
Approximately how many total student athletes do we have, you know?
Just below 400. That number fluctuates. It ranges from 350 to 400.
Thank you.
So are we still active in the Big Blue fundraising program?
Yes, sir. We had 2 great visits last week for some corporate solicitation. And so, yeah, we're very active in that space. And I will say that we invested a lot of resources in our external teams last year with the hiring of Lee DeLeon and then really turn over like 4 new positions in the BRAA. And those people have done a fantastic job. All right, thanks very much.
Thank you, Chris.
Uh-huh.
So that concludes our agenda. Any other comments? If not, the meeting is adjourned.
Let's take a 5-minute break.
Yeah.
Good job.